Okay, so this is going to be a bit of a rant. If you don't want to hear it, it'll be probably a couple minutes long. Then I would recommend skipping to the gameplay footage. But this is just going to be an explanation of what I meant with all the timings in that last video. So at the 10-minute mark and every 5 minutes, I checked the gold earned and essentially compared CS between the teams in the relevant positions. So compared Vladimir to Oriana, for example. This is a way to look at how a team is doing as a whole. Generally, you could say, well, this team is up by a little bit of CS, but it's balanced out by the kills, and they got Dragon. And really, just a quick way to go ahead and see how a team is doing. This kind of fits into timings in the sense that if a team is strong mid game, but they're behind in farm, and you can check that and see that, then you have a better understanding of, well, we can actually do more. Or if you see that, well, we just got this advantage, but our team isn't that strong, we should press it now while we have this advantage. Now, the other type of timing I meant was more of a individual timing. So Oriana's really good when she has blue buff at the 7-minute or 8-minute and 13-minute mark. It's generally when she'll get them. Vladimir can't get these giant boons, so he knows that for 3 minutes, or 2 minutes, I don't know how long blue buff actually lasts, he's going to have this major weakness because Oriana is going to have so much harass he can't really deal with it. There are timings like that throughout the game. For example, Gangplank is very, very scary at level 1 when most heroes only have one skill. If you have a long cooldown skill, like your Swain for example, you start with your root for a team fight. If that Gangplank catches you with his Q, you might be dead. You might not be able to escape, you might miss the root, bad things can happen. But the second you get level 2, and even if he has removed Scurvy, it's still tricky for him to kill you. Relatively, Swain versus Gangplank is not a matchup in Swain's favor. At the same time, you have characters like Kassadin. Kassadin is just a timing-based character. He is very weak from level 1 to 5 against certain types of harass. So let's say you're Talon against Kassadin, 1 to 5, you beat him up. The second he hits 6, he has a way to fight back now. The second he hits 11 or 16 and gets blue buff, all of a sudden he becomes unkillable. Kassadin is just really a ticking time bomb. There are just various characters like this in League of Legends. Kassadin, Kog'Maw, Tristana. If the game goes on for long enough, these characters will pretty much become either unkillable because of their safety measures, or they just have the range to just murder you. Timing is weird in League of Legends because you'll see games go very, very oddly. Have you ever seen a game where a team has a bunch of great lane killers and they kill your lanes, but then they get to the mid game and your team groups up, and even though they're way far behind, like you're down by 10 kills, but your team comp is so good you win fights? This happened to me recently. I was playing Janna, and their team just did not have a good team composition. It was like Ezreal and Teemo were on their team. So mid-game came around, and we had a lot of AoE ults and Tristana, and it's a lot of damage. They could not deal with our damage and just our mid-game presence, even though they completely trashed us early. And I'm going to say it wasn't even funny, but really it was absolutely hilarious because it was such a mean trashing. So timing is weird because I can't really give you a good way to look at every situation and go, well, they're good then, we're good at this time. Let's try and press our advantage at the time we're good, because it will change dramatically based off the game, based off the CS score, based off ward placement. A proper ward in the bot lane can actually make a jungler like Lee Sin much weaker because he can't get ganks off. Shaco, for example, if you just ward like crazy and never let him get in, will get much weaker mid-game, but if Shaco gets those ganks off, he's got a very scary mid-game. I'm not saying wards protect you from Shaco. They do, but Shaco's got a lot of answers for that. So, you want to try and learn how to deal with timings on your own. You want to try and learn how a team will do based off the situation. It's not something I can really tell you. I can't, like I said before. It's going to come through experience. It's going to come through knowing very key champions will determine the timing of games. A Mumu, for example, is a great indicator of when a team is strong. Because once a Mumu has that ult, you know for every 3 minutes, he can generally win a team fight on his own. Morgana, the same thing. If they have an Amumu and a Morgana usually is a little stronger. So the obvious thing too is if a team is snowballing, you got to keep that snowball up. That is something high-level players will do all the time. When they get an advantage, they push it. I haven't really shown any major snowball games yet because those are kind of hard to glean information from, but at the same time they show you how to win once you've already started winning, and I'll be taking a look at those in the future. Okay, so sorry about this long rant. Let's go back to the game. It's going to be very interesting, and I like how this game ends for the last half. All right, let's go. So when we left off, Sinister Rue had just gotten a gank off on their Orianna, and he is at mid, low health. They're doing okay. They were kind of behind. Now they're kind of caught up. Haven't looked at stats since 20-minute mark, so we'll check on that on the 25-minute mark. And here, Graves has left bottom. He actually is missing out on a lot of CS because the creep wave is pushing up there, so that's pretty good for blue side. Essentially, they reacted to the gank, and there wasn't really anything for them to take advantage of, except here's Yorick. I believe an earlier Flash W would have actually saved Sinister in this situation, because he would have been able to flash, pool, and not let the Raiden get his ghost off on him or his slow off on him. And Raiden also got a phage proc, so that helped quite a bit, but it's okay in the end. Pretty much one of those situations where one person gets chased, the other team tries to react, and it just does not end well. So here, the laning phase has ended. The only person who's really going to lane that much anymore is going to be Sinister, and only because he's trying to farm up as much as he can. And laning doesn't exactly last long for him. It's mostly bouncing between the lanes and grabbing CS wherever he can. So 25-minute mark, let's check how the teams are doing against each other. So Sinister's at 189, Salsi at 213, pretty big difference there, but not too bad anymore. Sivir at 233, Graves at 180. That's huge. They need to keep fighting right now. Sivir is just so far ahead of Graves. Reverie on Taric, no Reverie on Soraka too, so that's actually significant. Support items, it's weird to talk about, but when supports get items, it's actually very, very significant when it's a Reverie, because Reverie is actually a massive game-changing item. So it doesn't really matter what they have until they start getting items like the Reverie. I mean, a support with a Heart of Gold versus a support with just a Philistone and a Heart of Gold, it's not really too big. It matters in laning, but that's about it. So at this point, it's just kind of, some ward fights, some counter warding fights. If the FPS goes a little crazy, I had a lot of trouble recording this game, actually. I think Graves' Smoke Shroud messes with my video card. It's a very odd skill that I remember it used to actually crash people or just slow down their computers way back when. Anyhow, so we're going to see a team fight start here, based off this counter drilling attempt. So everybody kind of roams around here in the jungle, and they catch Raiden. Now let's watch this in slow motion. So I'll try to say what happens, just because it's kind of hard to catch. They catch Raiden, he gets his ghost off on himself. Shyvana comes, pulls the entire team together, and gets them off Raiden, a good pull. They're still focusing Raiden's Yorick. And then here's where everything goes to hell for the green team. Or blue team. 4 hit by Orianna's ult, and the follow-up W. Soraka's getting the heals off that she needs to get off. Yorick is making it out alive. And that Graves W was amazing. They get into the bush and they can't do shit. Like, that was just a fantastic W. And the ult follow-up, was good. If Soraka had a Reverie, this would have been an ace. That's how significant Reveries are in this game. They would have gotten the 3 of them right there, or at least 2 of them. So when it comes to starting a team fight, you always want to try and catch somebody for the most part. However, catching somebody tanky when they're near the rest of their team is inherently risky. It's why people will, go forward with the Moo, and you really don't want to engage on him because he'll just ult you, and then you'll blow everything on a Moo and not do anything. So starting team fights is very, very weird. Here they're catching off Raiden, which is actually really good for them because it keeps them in the game. So something I like here is the other team has Baron, but they're down Yorick, and they keep up the pressure because of this. Even with that Baron buff, Baron is huge, but it's not as huge as it used to be, and it does not change just the skills of characters and how they work. So even with that advantage of Baron buff, they're still going to apply pressure. And they're smart enough to back off when they realize that against that Orianna, they really don't have a whole lot at the moment. So they're counter pushing, they're just trying to keep up that pressure. Something important you want to do once you reach that roaming around time is to get your buffs. However, you gotta watch out for counter pushes. They split to get those buffs, and those buffs are huge. Red buff and blue buff can change fights, but when you split, they will get a tower, and they really need to keep their. They can't let the other team get an advantage. If they start coming back in full force and taking major map objectives besides just the Baron, they will be in a lot of trouble. So here, it's 30-minute mark. Dragon, I think dragons have all been taken by blue side. Baron taken by the purple side. Towers, the advantage goes to purple side, just by one though, just by one. Vladimir caught up in CS. He's only down by 17 now. Graves is down by a whopping 63. So the game is really starting to become about these few characters: the Graves, the Orianna, the Yorick, Sivir, Vladimir, and Sion. The other characters kind of matter, but their farm is just so much lower that they're not going to contribute that much to team fights. So the game has become centric on these few characters. If they can kill Graves, or if the other team kills Sivir, then they will probably win the team fight. If they can kill Orianna or Vladimir before they get a lot up, they'll win the team fight. Same thing. They're just these few key characters that keep them in the game. And this tends to happen in most League of Legends games, because once you start getting like 200, 300 CS, the guys with just 100 or the zero CS support can't do as much. So here's another team fight that starts. I like this team fight because it shows what you do in team fights in a way. So Shyvana is jumping on Sivir. They need to kill Sivir. Vladimir and Udyr are jumping on Graves. So two different people are jumping on each other's carries. Taric and Sion are actually able to protect Sivir from the dives, and actually they also focus on Taric a bit too. Because the only CC they really have to protect Graves is Orianna's ult and Soraka's silence, they do not protect Graves, so Graves dies, and they just take the fight because of that. Shyvana dies trying to dive Taric, or trying to dive Sivir. Graves dies from their other team's diving. That is how you want a team fight to work out, essentially. You want your carry to stay protected, you want their carry to not be protected. It's weird to say because it seems obvious, but in practice it's actually very hard to do. Because how do you protect somebody? You can't take a bullet for them, you can take a skill shot, but if they are being right-clicked down, you can't really stop that. So you gotta use whatever you can. In this case, Taric and Sion, two really strong stuns. It just kind of works in their favor. So once again, sorry about the technical issues. It's just been really, really weird, and I just want to kind of get this update out too. I'm kind of sick, so my throat's just dying. So with that one fight though, the game is now once again in blue side's favor, and they know it. They're taking hold of the advantage they got, and they want to keep the action up. They have an inhibitor down. If the game goes on too long, the other team will come back. So they just got to keep up the fight. So right now, they're going for a good push. This is a good idea. And it really is up to Purple Team to decide whether they want to defend this tower, which is at half health, which is not a whole lot, or go for the fight. And this will let me actually talk about something. If you're defending a tower, defend it. Do not just hang around there, because it will kill the tower and then it will kill you. This fight starts off with Shyvana getting caught. She dives back in to try and just, sacrifice herself for the team. Fantastic Orianna ult, fantastic Vladimir ult, hits a bunch of people, but blue team just has more damage right now. Key kill on Orianna right there, because now she can't keep up her range poke. They got who they need to get, essentially. Getting either Graves or Orianna and keeping both your carries alive is major. And at this point, the game is really starting to kind of snowball. They got another team fight, they got another tower, and they got Baron. And yeah, sorry about the technical issues. The game's almost done, so it's okay. So 35-minute mark, advantage to blue side, disadvantage purple side. This is the strength of a mid-game team, actually. Mid-game is really when the game gets decided for a lot of games. Game. Early game is big, but if you group up and you can't do anything, then your early game, unless you go like 15-0, it's hard to actually take advantage of. People make comments about how if you win lanes, you can win the game. That is true, but only if you can do something with the lanes you've won. So they're going to continue pushing. This time purple side's better about running away earlier, but they still get caught. I love that Orianna ult. Such a good Orianna ult. However, with Baron and just the amount of damage they output, this game's pretty much over. And now Orianna ult's actually down. Sad to see him go. Okay, so this has been a daily featuring Sinister Rule on Vladimir. I hope you guys learned a lot about just general timing and when you want to take actions. I can go to more specific examples later, but this is just kind of an intro to the idea. So hope y'all enjoy it. I am sick. My throat is so hurting right now. So this is Studio saying adios.